Doug Mazeski.
So, tonight on the show, we have a friend of mine from Toastmasters, ex-Navy guy, and author, and he also worked at NASA. So, I'm really excited about hearing some of his stories.
Yeah, I like the NASA part. I like the space part.
You know, it makes me wonder, will he talk about aliens? We're glad to have Doug Nelson.
Welcome to the third chair. We have another Doug here, so that's totally going to confuse Peter all night because he doesn't even know which Doug he's talking to in real life. And now there's three of us. He's just going to... If he goes bonkers... Two S's? You have two S's at the name of Douglas?
Yep.
Wow. I've seen that in last names and not too much in first names. Interesting. Do you know why your
My
parents...
mother was of Scottish descent.
Oh.
She was the youngest daughter. So she wanted to keep the family name Douglas a little bit longer.
Okay. My wife just made her maiden name her middle name after we got married. So.
Well, I used to joke with my wife that part of the name she married me because my name is Nelson. It was easier to spell than the Polish name of Wieczesek. So.
Definitely. I'm Polish and I have no idea how to spell what you just said.
See what I mean?
So the first question I have on this list, given me by my esteemed colleague, is do you consider yourself an artist?
No.
No?
Maybe somewhat, but no. An artist is dedicated to his work and what he wants to design or produce. I do a lot of reading. I have a lot of imagination. And I have a lot of good potential stories. But I never really, or very seldom, get around to following through.
No. Do you ever do, because you're part of Toastmasters, right?
Correct.
Do you ever tell these stories at Toastmasters?
Oh, yes.
So wouldn't that make you an artist? Just being a devil's
advocate.
Well,
This is a family podcast. No, there are some stories I will not tell. Especially about astronauts.
Speaking of astronauts, we found out this evening that Doug was worked for NASA for a while.
Yeah.
And you helped design ways to make life easier when they were up at the space station. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, or more bearable.
More bearable.
Especially in the early days of the space program.
So did
it can get quite smelly up there.
Oh, okay. So it smelled better.
And
well,
that's sometimes the case of our studio, so we're
less rank, huh?
Yeah.
Less rank. Yeah.
So could you provide some of your work for the studio here because of Peter?
I was working with the enclosed environmental systems. And you're talking about a closed cabin with very small volume. Actually about the size of a station wagon on the upper deck.
And they stay there up to 6 months, right?
Well, no, in the space station, yes. But space shuttles didn't have that long
space
period,
shuttle.
Really. Now, in the Landsat days, yeah, you could stay up for several months.
Okay.
But all of them enjoyed the fact that whenever they returned to Earth, the first thing they do is crack a hatch or a window. just breathe
fresh
in
air.
That fresh air.
You know, I saw Apollo 13. They didn't talk about that on that movie.
like the movies would go into that.
Yeah, well, they really don't. It's not really necessary. You have the visual effects. But these are what I am calling like the day-to-day chores.
So if they ever have smell-o-vision right, you would be the expert to go.
There's going to be a lot of readjustments in crew selection, I can tell you that.
But people probably wouldn't like watching a movie with smell-o-vision of the space shuttle, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. Wow, you just like really wrecked it, like for my thinking about going into space. It's like
so you're not going to sign up for. We just had a guest in a previous episode talk about visiting Mars,
Mm-hmm.
and the difficulties of that. But he never mentioned the smell of going in that spacecraft, at least a year and probably most likely longer from the Earth to Mars and the smells you'd have to put up.
Yeah. Well, I had one astronaut tell me after a while you get used to it, but you never celebrate it.
But you told me another interesting thing, and we were discussing this earlier. Look, we just gone through one question, but this is such an interesting topic. But you said they kind of lose their taste too.
Yeah.
And their smell.
Yeah.
Because,
sinuses.
well, the smell works with taste, right?
Yeah, but that helps with the situation.
Well, there's a lot of things we're still learning about the human body in relation to space travel. For example, part of the fluid distribution within your head is whatever the fluid is, it helps with your hearing and your balance.
You have the
It's common for astronauts when they come back, and it takes a while of staggering and starting to be able to walk again.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
But the thing is, at NASA, especially at Cape Kennedy, they had to post young staffers at the corners of the corridor because an astronaut just coming back, he's lost much of his balance
Okay.
and his perception that comes with having weight. And they often had to be right there at a sharp corner to push the astronaut away or he'd walk right into the wall.
Oh. So were they called pushers?
Who knows? That's something I haven't learned. I'm going to try and find
They
out
sort
something.
of forgot to make that obvious in Armageddon, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They walked off that thing like nothing, but
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, any NASA worker is quick to point out all the discrepancies you see in science fiction movies. And you do have to be careful. And such as your guest, who is an expert on Mars, we're going to have to make some adjustment to Mars gravity.
Right.
Because you can very easily run along some corridor and bang into the overhead. You're used to doing things differently, your whole body. And it can make for some amusement, but you have to write it down anywhere. A 16-year-old high school student made a suggestion of putting a spider up into space to see what kind of a web it would make.
Well, that's that's a pretty good idea.
So they did, but of course you can't brief a spider. So they had a terrarium.
Well, you could,
for
but it
her.
probably would
Yeah.
comprehend any of
Well,
it.
her name was Arabella, if you want to look it up. She was a female, and they put her up in a cage full of thistles and twigs and that type of thing. For about 3 days, she just clung to the nearest branch,
Oh, because she was so.
disoriented.
Oh, okay.
What is going on?
Yeah.
When she tried to spin a web, they usually have like an anchoring strand that they build upon. She went end over end with all her limbs out like this and got caught up in her own strand.
Oh, because she
you had
started to
yeah,
float.
so she had to clean herself. She still couldn't do it, so at the end, she made a web about this size.
So I mean, that's probably through
Yeah.
pure determination.
Cured
from-
it, exactly right. And she did it by going from limb to limb like this. And she got this little meaty little web out of it. But hey, like I said, no one could brief her. And
Yeah, but that's pretty impressive, though.
that they could do something. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I am hopeful. We don't know how people will adapt, and animals too, for that reason.
Okay, but is it something like if a spider can adapt? Did this person write a paper?
Yeah, it's in one of the archives.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to see if Doug read this paper or heard what it said,
was online.
And he'll tell us maybe a little summary of this paper when we come back after this break.
Important break.
Yeah, important break. Welcome to the third chair. So, Doug, did you ever have a chance to read that report or get a summary of did they come to any
Some of the things
wonderful
About the spider
conclusions
Yeah.
about
that
the
wouldn't
spider?
spin the web.
Conclusion?
well, a lot of it was anecdotal, but from a trustworthy source, like the astronaut himself.
Mm.
And I did see a clip of Arabella when she finally made a real attempt to do her web, and putting out that supporting strand, getting tangled up in it, cleaning herself, and then she started on the rest of the web by putting 4 limbs to the nearest branch, pulling herself along, spinning the web, going to the next one. So she climbed over and she made a web about this size.
So it shows that, even like a small spider is adaptable.
Yes.
Will figure out a way to do things within their
But it's also disorientable. I don't know
It's
if that's a word.
disorient.
Yeah.
But you put like a human will be disoriental, but it's okay because they probably, if they stay with it, they probably can figure out a way to overcome.
They don't really talk about, but the average mission that goes up, at least 1 out of 4 of the new astronauts get sick.
You mean like puke?
Yep.
Well,
I was trying to be polite.
Yeah,
but you
this
don't want
is
to
a
breathe
degree.
the stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't help. Do you have something like to make throw up?
Ordinary, at my time in there, was like North American Airways barf bags, really.
Now during break, you were telling me about an astronaut, and they said certain things they could see in the stars that we normally can't
Yes.
see from Earth.
Yeah.
I-
Again, I didn't review the actual mission tapes. But yeah, I've had them tell me while on break and that type of thing in the simulator that, yeah, when you're up in space, you do have 3-dimensional sensations. So when you're up there, you can look at the stars, you can see their different colors, and you can see which ones are closer and which ones are further.
That's pretty amazing.
And you're talking
I would
about,
never guess
hundreds of light years.
Wow.
But that is one of the things.
Okay, so everyone wants to know how many of these reports of like alien ships flying around out there have credible, I don't know what the word is, credibility,
Plausibility.
plausible deniability.
And there is that too, yeah. Well, in my time when we were there, yeah, there would be some sightings, but even the astronauts did not want to talk about it because it was a quick trip to the loony bin. Pilots, for example.
Yes,
And they don't really like to talk about it.
because someone will pull their license or whatever.
But now I guess it's okay.
It's happening more and more, and yeah, there are getting to be more sightings.
Are we just hearing about them, or do you think there's more out there?
My problem is that if I was interviewed by an investigative reporter, I too could go to the loony bin. Because of the stories you hear and the plausibilities that are making more and more sense as simply we're getting more information and more knowledge. And there is more and more evidence of abductees, people getting kidnapped by flying saucers. And you hear theories that I find trouble accepting, but I've been told with a straight face. And for example, one is that I do know from other readings that the mathematics for time travel and going faster than light, they're identical. And some of the flying saucers we see, according to some theories I've read, are actually time machines.
Interesting thought. Interesting thought.
That could be a thought.
Yeah, Doug, are you an alien?
Huh? Both of my sons wonder.
We also
Anyway.
wonder with Peter for that. So.
Also, well, here are the things.
Oh my gosh, I'm up here with two of them.
I work with a guy right now. We're trying to do, like, I'm not plugging anything.
It's okay
But
to
we're
plug
trying,
it.
we're trying
Yeah,
to do.
Shamelessly plug it.
Okay. The stories we're working on are all part of a humorous graphic novel that we call The Rock Slingers.
Rock slingers.
Yeah. Because
That you're doing, but you deny
you
being an
have
artist.
you have machinery that, just like David's sling, you can rotate it faster and faster, let it go, and that rock will travel. You can ask David the Shepherd about that.
Right.
And a lot of our technology is based on primitive theories that discovered to be working. And so we have a fly-by-night private organization that uses secondhand and refurbished shuttles for their activities. And they, rather than take a small rock and put it in a net and try to attach it to a rocket, they just open up the hatches, something slings it, and there goes your sample. So we have a series of stories
Excuse me.
based on that.
Oh,
And
wow.
because I used to work at NASA, there's a lot of the same type of bureaucracy we'll find in NASA. They happen in real life so people can understand it and get a laugh out of it. For example, one of our stories is a small boy who wins the lottery. They didn't expect to put an age limit on it. So the kid wins the lottery, but you can't send a 10-year-old boy into space. But, well,
Why not?
Why not?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what his grandfather, the senator, is asking.
That helps.
So he goes into space.
Well,
But
that's fun.
he's still a boy. One of the big problems we have in space is that we have a lot of debris orbiting around.
Right.
And the kid smuggles aboard a slingshot just for fun. But they have him marching clouds of debris, and he's in the RMS chair, and he's shooting down pieces of debris.
So this is part of your story.
Part of my storylines. Yeah, I have a
Nice.
number of
Yeah, nice.
storylines.
Yeah. Now, this has generated a question in me that from the earlier discussion, and that is, besides human, has there been one animal that seems to be more or better suited for going into space? Like you need to bring your little wiener dog, or or what has been found, if anything, to be the ideal?
Tigers.
Tigers. Yeah, they can. That can be
Tiger.
problematic feeding them.
Yeah.
They tend to snack on the crew.
I mean, yeah, the
That's
tiger
not problematic for the tiger whatsoever.
Well,
the tiger outsurvived the astronauts.
It's
in that
worse than
front.
that.
The tiger will want more spice though. 'Cause
Yeah, exactly. He's got to put a little Tabasco on.
Well, it could be worse than that. Back in the early days of the Mercury program, we actually had an astronaut who was also a pilot. And he
Weren't
went up.
most of the astronauts pilots?
Yes, but we're getting more and more mission specialists too.
Yeah.
But anyhow, this
Yeah.
guy went up in a Sabre jet, and he had with him a cat. And when he let the cat go, the cat just went absolutely nuts. I mean, it peed all over the instruments. It clawed his face to shreds.
Oh, because it's floating,
It's floating. It's not used to
So-
floating.
and cats probably would want some type
And
of
yeah, the story is that when he landed, his face was all bloody, and the technicians took the cats out, and he just walked away from the jet, and he walked right out through the front gate. I'm done.
Never came back.
Never came back.
Well,
I never
I
came
guess-
back.
Did
to
he
the
take
space
the
program.
cat with him?
Oh, that would have been something, wouldn't it?
Well, I was gonna make a joke about that. That's the cat getting out of the bag or whatever.
Boy, that is good.
Yeah,
I mean, they sent dogs and chimpanzees.
Oh
right,
yeah, no.
to
One of the
space.
first ones was a Russian dog. I think her name was.
Plateau.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of her name right
Plateau.
now, but she had a one-way mission. She just went up to see how
Oh,
long
she was
she could last.
sacrificed. Yeah.
She was sacrificed. Yeah,
Yeah,
sad.
But
Well,
I
like kids
think
cry.
a couple of the dogs did come back.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, and they're fine. And chimps, of course.
Yeah.
And chimps are pretty readily adaptable too. They get upset at first, but it's well, it's just like
Because they don't know that it's coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
You know, because like the spider, you said you can't breathe.
All of a
with
sudden
chimp.
everything's changed. I mean,
You could find a picture and say, yeah, you're going up in the rocket, and they might understand that, but they don't know what's going to happen to them in the rocket.
You know, I want to see an elephant go up.
And on that note, we might actually talk about your
don't know.
2 books that you have.
now they have nothing to do with
Published.
space at all.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we come back from our break.
Okay.
Real people, real stories, real life. We're looking for guests. We're looking for you here on the third chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and how many different ways can we have guests?
Oh, at least 3. We could have them here in the studio in Colorado Springs. We've had guests all the way from LA on Zoom, and we have gone on location, and we got our 3rd one already in the planning phase.
Awesome. Send us an email and we'll get you on the show.
Welcome to the third chair. Now I understand you have a couple of books out there published.
Yes.
What are they about?
They're a collection of stories based on the stories my father would bring home. My father was a unique storyteller. And I grew up taking notes.
So this would have been about.
This would be during the late 50s, early 60s.
Oh, okay, so do most of the stories take place in those years?
In those times, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was he in the military?
No, Dad was a fireman. Now, he used
Oh,
to
that's
be...
right. I remember that. Yeah,
he
fireman.
used to be an army man.
An army man.
Yep.
So.
And then he became a tanker while in the army.
Oh.
So was he? Was he there during World War II?
Yes, he was.
Oh, did
Yes.
he?
Yeah.
Where did he serve?
In the Pacific, mostly.
Oh, in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Okay. So did he make it to like the Philippines? Or
Yes,
anything?
he did. He was in the original invasion. Well, you know, the 1944 invasion of the Philippines.
He cleared it so MacArthur could walk through the water and
Yes.
go on land.
So I thought
Yeah.
it was mainly the Marines that were in the Pacific in World War II.
Most of the islands in the Central Pacific.
But
Dad was a ground pounder, and he went up along the back of New Guinea and then the Philippines.
remember MacArthur wanted that because he was stationed in the Philippines before World War II, and he had to retreat, and he said he would return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
people
where
get
they
that
took
quote
it.
all wrong. He actually said, I shall return my library book. It's overdue. I'll return my library book.
Well,
but
it was-
it was short until I
It
shall
was
return.
actually one of his great personal tragedies and I would even say a scientific tragedy too.
Was what?
He had a very extensive personal library of history books,
Huh?
particularly army books.
Okay.
And they
the
were lost?
Japanese, they were all lost. The Japanese at the time were very vindictive and destructive. And they just smeared his whole library. That was one of his personal
So that was
gigantic
all lost.
losses. Yeah,
That is sad.
yeah.
Yeah, but
You
All
think
that
they would have
knowledge.
taken it to be able to study their opponents, but
no, they were.
They were all caught up in, I can't think of the term right now, it's psychological. It's when you think the end of the world is coming, so there's no need to save anything.
kind of apocalyptic
That's
kind
it.
of
Yeah, yeah,
Destroy your opponent completely.
correct.
Scorched
And his
earth.
legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it was. Dad was a tank driver when they invaded the Philippines. He drove amphibious tanks.
So did your dad ever talk, because they have native people there that were there for the Spanish, they called them the Negritos. Did he ever talk about the Negritos?
not the Negritos, but he talked a lot about the Filipinos and the Filipinas.
Okay, I remember.
And
Did he talk about the blowguns?
No, nothing like that.
Okay, because I lived in the Philippines when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, we bought for my 10th birthday, I got a blowgun that was that my dad bought from the Negritos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then his dad had to take away from him because every time he got in trouble, he shot his dad.
Yeah, it was generally found that the blowguns weren't very effective against the amphibious tanks.
Yeah,
Well,
little needles, but I always thought that was so neat.
And when you suck in too hard and swallow your own needle, that's usually
especially when it's dipped in poison. Yeah,
it was hard to swallow that needle.
Well, that's why it was only adults who used them. We don't know how many children tried.
yes.
Well, I was 10. I was shooting it.
How accurate were you?
You know, I wasn't. When we bought it, this guy, my dad says it accurate, and he didn't even look. He had a box back there.
Mm-hmm.
He just turned around right in the middle of the box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got so I could hit the box most of the time in my backyard. You know, shooting it across.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't ever super accurate. You know, but I was.
Still, you have what could be called a deadly knowledge, especially if other people don't realize you have it.
Yeah, but I don't have a blowgun around now.
Well,
you know, it fell apart.
Even
Made out of
today, you can
bamboo.
go on something like the internet and get running documentaries of people who use a sling just exactly like David had.
Yeah,
And
that's
some
true.
of them can be quite accurate.
Yeah, and that will kill a person.
And it will.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
there's,
you get that rock going fast enough.
well,
Yeah.
it's anecdotal that David could kill bears with it.
And
It's quite possible.
it is quite possible. I
And
mean,
it can sting them enough to move it. A lot of people just don't realize that animals know, even the big predators, if he's injured, he's going to starve.
You can buy a blowgun on Amazon.
Yep,
you can.
yep.
I
Crossbows,
think
too.
this is just more proof that a 10-year-old really could go into space. They
Yes.
can yield a blowgun. They
Yeah,
can go
the
to
blowgun.
space.
Yeah, you know, too bad. You should have your 10-year-old kid have a blowgun.
Well, I am calling what you might call a fatalist, but with an optimistic side. Yeah, we will have children go into space. I'm convinced of that. Even in the days of the Royal Navy, we use boys on most of the ships because they were very adept at getting in and out of tight corners.
So you,
And they were very nimble.
small hands, be able to get little shells.
That's right. Yep, powder
Yeah.
monkeys they were called.
Powder monkeys.
Yep.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is Treasure Island. You know.
Yes, exactly. That's a lot of nautical anecdotal wisdom in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a hornblower fan
Was that
myself.
Robert Louis Stevenson who did Treasure Island?
Robert
Robert
Louis Stevenson. Yeah, you're right.
Stevens
He did
Treasure
Treasure
Island.
Island.
Treasure Island.
Yeah, that to me is a great book. I mean,
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Required
I'm
reading for
thinking
any
of
boy.
Robinson Crusoe, and I couldn't remember a little boy, but okay.
Defoe,
Yeah, it's a-
Defoe wrote Caruso, I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
William
yeah.
Defoe. Yeah.
Yeah.
and we're not talking the Green Goblin.
So your dad?
Well, Dad was a fireman, and as a firefighter, he had a lot of adventures happen to him. And like I said, my dad was a storyteller, and he liked to kid.
So where were you living when you did?
I was living in Haverhill, Massachusetts,
Okay.
New England town.
Okay.
And yeah, Dad had his share of personalities that he would work with. And a lot of them were a basis. There was one guy they called Crazy Ed. And he loved rigging firecrackers.
Oh.
As a fireman, you're not supposed to do that. But whenever the police confiscated a bunch of illegal fireworks, they gave it to the fire department for disposal.
And they didn't always dispose of them at
Not properly.
the proper method. Yeah.
Yeah, not properly.
They were given some latitude.
Yeah.
Well, they took some latitude. That probably is the more proper way to put it. But
So what's the old saying? It's
but,
easier to ask
it's-
for forgiveness and permission. Yeah,
permission.
but they did get rid of the firecrackers.
that's right.
And that was the objective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Mission was accomplished.
It was
Is there
accomplished.
a special story with one of the firecrackers that You can tell us on this.
Yeah, I guess it's okay. I don't know if this will ever get back to the city fathers, and of course I'll deny it.
I think the statute of limitations is over.
Well, one of the guys came back with a Chinese skyrocket.
Oh, okay.
It was about the size of a modern Coke bottle.
Okay.
Had a small stick.
Yeah.
They were wondering what to do with it. And the captain of the fire station was a real by-the-book type of guy.
Uh-oh.
And he had just ordered a series of field days, which the men didn't like. And he'd come on through. I mean, he would take a white glove, put it on, go right up the spout of a fire extinguisher and go like this to see if there was any dust on it. So one night, they got hold of this skyrocket. And I said, let's have some fun with it. We'll wake up the skipper. So they propped the thing up against one of the fire sliding poles, lit the fuse, and it was like something summoned from hell. That thing shot up straight into the ceiling, punched a hole through it, and then it detonated.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of the plaster came down, and they could see the glow of a fire. Well, they were firemen, but good gosh, if you had a fireman burned down by firefighters playing with explosives and fireworks, it would be pink slips all around.
Yeah.
So they managed to put out the fire, clean it up. Captain was all kinds of mad. And he said, let us all take a moment in prayer, gentlemen, that no fire occurs tonight. But you're going to fix that damn ceiling. So they had to fix it, and since it was still damp, when they painted it, well, they had to paint the other ceilings. And it was dawn by the time they finished. And the city governor of Fayetteville never found out, but swore him to secrecy. But yeah, that was one of Dad's favorite stories.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's right, and we proudly tell stories.
Oh, well.
We tell secrets here on the third chair.
And Peter's going to ask some questions of you when we come back on your opinions on certain items.
My opinions.
Yes.
Yes.
How much do you think they're worth?
Two bits, and your opinion will get a cup of
I was
coffee.
going to say $1 a quarter because inflation's really been skyrocketing.
Yeah, it really is bad, isn't it?
I remember wars you could get a cup of coffee is absolutely forbidden.
We'll talk about pricing when we come right back. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. This is Doug. Our producer's Doug, and our guest today is Doug.
We have
a gaggle of Dougs.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by Dougness.
Yeah, you're surrounded by darkness, so you better be darn careful.
Yeah, I am.
We have you surrounded.
But yeah, wasn't there like a famous TV series called Doug or
There was a series called
cartoon.
Yeah, there was a Disney had a cartoon that was called Doug.
Yeah,
Now,
that was popular for a while.
but
we
I-
take his money, but we know he doesn't really have any, so.
Yeah.
But there was also a series called Ed, and Eddie.
Oh wow. Yeah.
True. And that innkeeper, famous comedian actor, but he had an inn up in Vermont. Cindy really
Oh,
liked.
Bob Newhart.
Yeah, Bob Newhart. Darrow, and Darrow.
No, it's Larry, and this is my brother Daryl, and my other brother Daryl.
Well, I thought it was all three of them. With
No.
Darrow.
Well, my favorite
That
is
was one
Spies
of
Like Us. Doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor. I guess, is that everyone? Doctor.
Oh, yeah. But I love the premise of many of those stories.
Well, we're going to talk about a doctor, Dr. Isaac Asimov, very famous author.
Oh, yeah. Over 500 books.
Yeah, no, they asked him what's his secret to writing. He says he gets up at 6 a.m. and he types until noon, and then he's done for the day.
Yes.
That was it? Yeah, I imagine he had some coffee or something in there. Probably smoked a pipe
He
or
had a
something.
young wife, too.
Ah.
And Asimov did have a wonderful sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And he could tell you stories, and I still to this day don't know what kind of encounters he had to coming up with some of those stories.
Yes, and I wonder if some of them were mushrooms and peyote. But anyways, I'm going to give you... We are going to treat this, Doug, as a sort of a mini table topics session. I'm going to give you a Isaac Asimov quote,
All right.
and you get to respond and tell us what you think about it. And this would be something that would also be done in a Toastmasters meeting, so it's kind of fun. All right, here's quote number 1. The saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom.
That is true. Yeah, I agree with it.
All right.
We develop things, and a lot of times they're so useful or wondrous, they get out to the public, or more important, the leadership, and they have not the faintest idea of what the consequences could be.
But do you think the scientists never, because guillotine supposedly was trying to,
Mercy.
a humane way to kill people, but people always can think of using these tools in a worse way. We're very
Yes.
creative that way.
That's sort of the point of not developing the wisdom,
Correct.
Yeah.
or perhaps compassion.
But
That's
I
how
think,
we got TikTok.
Yes.
But I think there's always going to be those people who are looking for that. It's like, how can I use this tool either to hurt somebody or to benefit from it personally?
Of course,
Not
there's that.
with the side benefit of hurting somebody.
Of course, there's that famous quote in Jurassic Park. We had the technology to do it, but should have we done it?
Yeah.
That
Well,
kind of
that's a
thing.
question
Well, no,
should
we
be
should.
asked. It should be asked a lot, but it's hard for the scientists to conceive all the ways, because whatever they invent can be used thousands of ways.
They just simply are exposed, and it actually was mentioned in Jurassic Park, is we have two entire species separated by millions and millions of years, and they have no idea how to interact with each other.
Well, at least one side wants a little Tabasco sauce with their interaction. Okay, let's go
Well, I
into
thought both sides. Does dinosaur taste like chicken?
I guess it depends if it just ate one. Now, here's one that I'm interested in your take on, because I don't totally. I read some of the context of this. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent.
I think that quote was from Samuel Johnson, and I'm afraid I disagree with it.
Yeah. I mean, I get the point. You ought to negotiate and do diplomacy and that, but there comes a time when some problems need boots on the ground, and I don't see Hitler, responding to a negotiation.
Well, he did respond to Chamberlain's negotiations.
Oh yeah, he did. He faked him out though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He had Chamberlain intimidated from the word go. No, I always felt sorry for Chamberlain. But as for violence, I am now at the point where it is a waste of time to negotiate with a sworn enemy. especially if one is kicking in your door and you're a young man who's a new husband and a father, you're just simply not going to waste time telling him that what he is doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You shoot him. And that's how I feel.
No, you have
today.
to protect the
Yeah, because
innocent.
he already knows
Yes,
what he's doing is not right.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean,
So you're not going to reason with him.
because the fact that he has to kick the door
Yeah. Yeah.
is enough to
Yeah.
tell.
But
anybody
there are
that.
other situations where violence could be as part of a last resort where there isn't room for negotiation, not so much someone attacking your home in the middle of the night.
Well, again, this is why I always advocate public executions. If you hang him in the town square, everyone in the audience is going to know what happens to those who have a tendency to kick indoors.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
westerns are full of this.
I would say that the only country I know of that is big on public executions, well, two of them, Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
Yeah, most
Turkey
of the others
also,
are-
I think.
Oh, Turkey.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go on with another one here. The day you stop learning is the day you begin decaying.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Now, I personally thought you had to die first before you actually decay, but yeah, you're talking
We know
mental
some
decay,
people who
mental
can walk and
decline.
talk. And I'm pretty sure
Metaphorically.
they decay.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Decaying, yes.
Yeah.
We have to explain Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
Because he's so deep.
He's so deep, but it's...
Oh,
You
he
know,
can be-
I love Isaac Asimov as a writer because he can take a complex idea and make it simple. And some people hate that. They said, well, his stuff is, you read it and it's so simple. But it's a lot of great ideas in there, and he can make it simple. And that's not easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
And and I saw a quote by Vonnegut that said, or was it Vonnegut? But by a famous writer, and he said, please your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it too complicated that they can't understand it or something like that.
Well,
Asimov is one of the best at making it simple. So you can,
Heinlein wrote a whole book based on a special device that was a spatial transporter. And the young man was brilliant but very, very shy. And when he visits a physics class, there's a very, very pretty girl there. But he was too shy, so he figured the only way to get her attention was to do something wonderful. So he developed a displacement box that would go from one end of the room to the other. And it was wonderful. What made the story very persuasive and laughable was that, just like today with the Terminator series, when you stepped into the booth and went to the other side of the classroom, you could only do it with living matter. All your clothes were left behind. So he invited the girl.
Clever.
Yeah,
Clever. Some guys will do anything on a date, yes.
Well, there's an old saying, why do we go to war? Because the women are watching.
Oh, that is probably a certain part of it. There's certainly a bunch of macho-ness in the military.
What?
So, when we come back, we are going to talk about something, and that
we're
will be
gonna
a
be-
surprise. Yeah,
Yeah.
people are going to find out when we come right back. Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And and I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. That's Doug. Our special guest is Doug Nelson, and our producer is Doug. So we have a triple Dougness tonight.
And that's why this has been such a great episode.
Oh, there's no doubt
The
about that.
Dougs are taking over the
That's
world.
right.
The Dougs are taking over the world.
In fact,
We already have. No one
Yeah.
knows it yet.
we've been filming this live, and the only complaints we have been against Peter's.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And so this last briefer segment, Doug, one of the questions we get a lot from a lot of people, we have a lot of artists on the show, and people are always want to know about the process of actually like writing a book or completing an art project. Like, how long, you've done two, how long did each one take? Roundabout.
Off and on about a year.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
How long were they then, each?
Each one had 12 chapters. Each one was about 2,800 words.
Each book was 2,800
Each
words?
chapter.
Each chapter. So, okay, so that's 40,000 or so, maybe more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of my soapboxes, and I have been warned by good friends not to go overboard. But,
Well, an ordinary novel's about 80,000, sometimes 120,000.
oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
look at Mishner's books. They range
Wow.
325.
Oh, yeah.
Look at George Martin and
War and Peace.
War and Peace, and right now we still have had recently from George Martin of the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those books are long.
They are long, they're heavy, they're turgid, but they are interesting. That's the
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Turgid.
the problem I have with it, that series is I don't know if he's going to survive to do it, because now it seemed like it was like 2 or 3 years between book 1 and 2,
Yeah,
and now it seems like 7 or 8 years,
yeah.
and he's not getting any younger.
No, yeah.
He all says I'm in good health, or that's what the publishing company says. He's in good health, and I'm like,
This is one of the reasons I always advocate people should carry a notebook around.
What, when inspiration hits to jot an idea down?
Ideas, in my opinion, are like fish in the sea. You've got to have a net handy, because you never know when one will swim by.
Well, I like to carry one too, and sometimes when I go into a restaurant, they'll say, like, what do you do? And I'll flash it and say I'm a writer. And then they'll give me like a free cup of coffee. So it's
You'd be
like,
surprised.
that's the important thing.
And everyone, the other thing is that everyone should write. People are like snowflakes. Billions and billions of people, none of them are exactly the same.
Right?
And you
Right.
can learn from even a novel something that could be important.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, your grandchildren have a better idea of what kind of a personality you were.
I hate when a lot of these people say, oh, I only read nonfiction because I want to learn something. And I am like, because I learned so much from reading fiction. I mean, if it's a good fictional book, I mean, there's kind of some slucky stuff out there.
Yeah.
That is this. But if it's a good fictional book,
Well,
you're bound to learn something.
Oh,
I'll give you
yeah.
a
I can't tell you what green eggs and ham has done for me, but it's made me a much
that's
better
very-
person.
We're not talking about your cooking.
It worked with you, Peter, because you will eat anything. You even ate
Pretty
a
much.
monkey biscuit. So.
Well, to
yeah.
me, the whole thing is you have experiences and then you have connections. I'm not here to brag all the time, but when I was a kid, I was like 12 years old and I was at a Boy Scout camp, and I would read a science fiction book. One of my favorite authors was Arthur Clarke. One of the space battles, the ship got hit several times by energy bolts, and one went right into the spacesuit locker. Another one hit the reactor. So the ship was doomed and everyone knew it. And all the spacesuits were gone. When the rescue ship pulled alongside, the doctor gathered the crew into the hangar and said it is possible to survive in space if you do exactly what I say. And he taught what we now call hyperventilating. You take a deep breath, blow out as much as you can, immediately take a deep breath, blow out as much as you can, then hold your breath, cover your eyeballs, and we'll blow the hatch and we'll have several ropes to get you to the next ship. And it worked. But it hit me, I wonder if you could use that underwater.
Yeah.
And it worked beautifully.
Yeah, sure.
I started going. Next thing I know, a lifeguard is hauling me out of the water because I've gone beyond the dock space.
Oh.
The camp director chewed my butt out. Then he asked me how did I do it. And I told him I became the official camp victim because I'd go down there for a long time and I didn't have enough fat in those days to float. So I'd have to stay down on the bottom at the deep end and watch the lifeguard students trying to get at me and haul me up. But
That's
I
great.
taught them all how to do it. And all my buddies, they're all men in retirement age. But I am sure at least some of them taught their children how to do this, and in turn taught their grandchildren. I may have saved 50 lives. I don't know.
I think you have. You should bill for that. In the meantime, we're going to wrap up tonight. Thanks for watching.
We're lucky
Please.
because Doug's going to be back next week.
He's going to be next. We got a
Really?
bunch of questions.
Because
We got a whole bunch more questions for him.
Because we got a little prison now in the studio, and we're going to keep him
Yeah,
there
we're
all
just
week.
going to keep him right
I
here.
just locked the door. I just locked the doors and send the food down the chute.
Yeah, that's right. We're excited to have him back next week.
Well, you see how these things go. Back in 1969, I actually met two abductees who were snatched up by a flying saucer.
Wow.
Oh.
Benny and Barney Hill. You can still look them
We'll
up on
talk
the
about
We'll have to
this
talk about it
next
next
Anyhow.
week. That's right. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you know when we put up the next episode. Good night.
This has been The Third Chair. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Want to be a guest? Want to sponsor our show? Send us an email.